Hi, I'm Adam Jennings, and this is Awaiting Approval, a podcast about the messy human side of creative leadership. Today, I'm joined by Stan Reimgen, co-founder at Big and more recently Big Future, for a relaxed two-way conversation about his journey, the lessons he's learned, and what it's taken to lead with creativity and honesty. Stan, welcome to Awaiting Approval.
Thanks, Adam. Looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise. To get us started, I'd love to know, if we were meeting in person, where would you take me and what would you order to drink?
What I order to drink? You know what? I think I just had last week Friday with another very experienced designer, a wonderful chat, and we just went for a walk. And it was good weather. It was sunny in Munich after a whole week of rain and fog. And we just went for a walk. And then we had some coffees, and we found towards second half of the walk just a little coffee place, and just sat down there for a coffee chat. And it was really good. It was a perfect way to end up the Friday and the week. So I would love to do the same. If you should come to Munich, and then I'll take you to the same coffee. It's a good one.
That'd be great. What would be your coffee of choice?
I always drink the same. So it's always just black coffee, Americano. No sugar, no milk. I find it much easier actually to drink black coffee because you don't need anything else. Also,
Right.
I don't have any milk. Pretty much don't have any sugar back home. And as whenever guests come along, I was like, well, I don't have any of this. So yeah, it makes my life a little bit easier. What about yourself? What kind of coffee? What's your favorite?
If I'm coming to your special coffee place and going for a walk with you, then I will take the same as you and drink that in solidarity. So I will raise a metaphorical black Americano with no sugar to kick us off on this. Just to kind of get us into the flow of things, I'd love a couple of sort of light-hearted questions first before we dig right into the kind of deeper stuff. So when was the last time you used pen and paper?
Last week.
Very good. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you prefer pen or pixel?
Pen.
I'm right with you.
Old school.
Yeah, that's great. So you're currently co-founder at Big and Big Future, as we said, but I'd love to go right back to where your career started. Talk to me a little bit about that very first experience.
Yeah, for sure. Like in my case, it's an interesting one because I didn't start as a designer, and I didn't start specifically in a creative industry. I had a very boring business administration degree, right? And like the vast majority of people who study business, they go and study business not because they're passionate about this, but because they don't know what else they should do with their life, right? And it was kind of like the same journey for me. And looking backwards right now, I always enjoyed being creative without putting a label on it, right? So I was always taking some photography, drawing some stuff, building a lot of Lego things. And right now it all ties together really well in my career and where I am, and I'm still really passionate just about building stuff, right? And I think what I do like about the business degree, and I think today it really like all comes down together. So first of all, from asking a lot of the same questions, I had when you build a business and I had a marketing focus, you always start with the question, what do we build? What kind of product and what kind of problem for whom does it really solve? So the initial question is always the same as in design, at least in product design. You want to build something useful, right? And then, also in the marketing degree, the other questions are very similar too. It's like, for whom are we building this, and how are we going to reach these people? How are we going to talk about this? Who are we as a company, and who are we as a brand? How are we going to put it out there? So a lot of the same questions kind of like came together afterwards as I transitioned more and more from business into product and design. And I think today it's all very connected in my work, right? But by the end of the day, what I still absolutely enjoy is really building things that are useful, that solve problems, and with Big, our entire focus is on sustainable innovations. For us, this is the biggest challenge we have as a society right now, and will probably remain the biggest challenge for the next decades. that here we really find new solutions for this huge problem. And we find good narratives and important, impactful narratives to talk about, and hopefully reach many more people to join us on this mission and pretty much transform every business, every product out there to be much more sustainable, to connect us with nature much more as it is today. Yeah.
A fantastic mission. And I love the idea of, that there's always a big conversation around designers or creatives wanting a seat at the table and therefore being able to understand business and understand the language of business. And so do you feel like your degree has really helped you with that, has really helped you understand, oh, okay, I can get this from that level, that sort of business operational level, but I can also understand it from a creative level as well?
I think so for sure. And yeah, you like if you operate it in business constraints, you have to understand those constraints exactly as we think about design constraints. And that is a business model, and whatever you do needs to have a revenue model, and it has to look on this angle for sure. Somehow I find that a lot of designers are not specifically interested in that, and maybe it's also fine. It's just important to understand where your strengths are and kind of like then position your career in one way or the other. But that's also an observation I've seen, or I do see again and again. That also, a lot of designers say so. They say they want to have a more important, like more strategic role to play, but then they're not super excited about this too. So it's kind of like a mismatch I see again and again. I'm not sure if do you share the same observation, or how has it been like for most of the career you've seen? How did it change also over a period of time?
That's a really good question. I've always been entrepreneurial, and so I've always had that notion of, well, it feels easier to just go out and make the opportunities for myself. And right from the beginning, when I was in acting, that was putting on, murder mystery evenings at the local pub or something like that. Like, okay, well, I'm just going to go and make it myself and make it happen. And I've really taken that through my career. And so I think having run my own agencies and my own companies, I think it then gives you that ability to see, okay, I understand why this is important as a business metric, and therefore I'm not just sort of working with some constraint that is this sort of nebulous, non-reasoning, guardrail that I have. There's an actual reason for it, and it makes sense. So therefore, I can put that into my thinking, or help my team have that in their thinking as we design this experience, campaign, product, brand, whatever it might be. And I think it's really crucial. And I say this often: as a design leader, you are a translator, but you're a two-way translator. You should be able to translate what your team needs or is saying or suggesting upwards towards senior stakeholders in the organization. But then you should also be able to take what your senior execs are saying to you and translate that back downwards, so that why is crystal clear both ways.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So from that start then, from the business degree and moving through, can you give us a bullet point history of where you went to and how you went to each, to the point where you first became a CD, and then from there to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So during the business degree time, I had my first internship was with BMW, and we helped BMW to start a creative agency within BMW, and it was really a really cool experience, kind of like as an intern to start something new as an agency within a corporate environment. I guess this was the first time where I also worked with some design tools. Like I had to learn InDesign back in the days. Also being a little frustrated in the first week where I imagined, and the agency was meant to serve both BMW and Mini brands. I was like, well, we can be super creative and we come up with really cool ads and new concepts and new ideas, whatever it is. And then on the first week, is like there's this massive CI guide which I put on the table, like hundreds of pages, which describes everything, how it's supposed to look and how it's supposed to be written. I was like, well, there's not much creativity anymore in there. So it was also my first lessons learned in the creative world, within a corporate environment too. And I also realized that corporate is not necessarily, or like operating within a corporate, not entirely my thing. Just things are quite slow and can be like very bureaucratic and everything. All of the labels which, put people on this job, like I think many of them are quite true. So I ended up finishing the studies and backpacking through Southeast Asia for 4 months. Traveling, also looking backwards, I think longer traveling, and especially like backpacking type of travel, is incredibly life rewarding because, yeah, you have to step out, you have to leave your culture, you have to leave your tribe, you have to connect with all sort of people from all sort of different background directions, and especially like backpacking where you don't have much money and you need to share transport together and sleep in hostels and etc. So I think just by meeting so many people with different mindsets is a great way to figure out like who are you and what is it that excites you, and just broadening your perspective. So I figured out during this traveling, and I met some people who've been entrepreneurs. And I figured out, oh, in Germany, we have the startup capital, Berlin, and everyone is going there to start their own things. I was like, well, I want to do the same. So me and my girlfriend back in the days, today my wife and my partner, we did that. We packed our stuff, put it all in a very, very small car, which we got from my wife's dad, and we moved to Berlin to start a startup. And that ended up being a whole startup journey, from funding the company, getting investors, building the team, building the product, doing this for about 4 years, and then being acquired by another company. And during that time, I noticed that, yeah, like building stuff is actually and building products and giving ideas a shape is something that excites me the most. So, and this was slowly my transition also into the design world. So I picked up Sketch back in the days, starting messing around, copying dribble designers, and learning kind of like hands-on design, and then transitioning, yeah, much more like from a business to a product to like a design role. And then my next role was again in a similar context, but worked out in a pretty cool way, is helping Commerzbank to build an innovation agency for the bank. So it was a startup as an agency in a corporate environment. This was a really cool experience, and they're doing pretty well today and owning a lot of the digital products for Commerzbank. So they've hired a significant team there. We've been growing quite a lot, getting more and more responsibility for digital innovation of the bank. But again, facing the same challenges within like a big corporate environment where we built a lot of stuff and then priorities shift and it's not priority anymore. And, designers being frustrated by saying, well, why should we care if we know that in many chances it's not going to be built anyways? I think this mindset is very dangerous. Like if you come to a stage where creative people are not creative anymore because they don't have expectations that their creativity is going to be seen by the world, and whatever they make is going to be useful to someone, that's not a good place to be. So I left, and this was also by the time my first daughter was born, and I got into the whole understanding how challenging the climate crisis is and where we are heading as a society, and that we already crossed majority of our planetary boundaries, and it's not just carbon, there's biodiversity, there's water, and there's soil, there's much more out there which is not properly addressed by the business, product, startup, and design community. And it's still the take today. And that's something we're trying to change with Big, that we use all of the experience that we as a team bring to the table. I use my experience from the past work experience and apply all of this into a place which is still until today was not faced by good design at all. If you look on this, like the climate crisis perspective from the macro perspective, we pretty much have to, as mentioned in the beginning, we need to change pretty much every business, like every product and the way we build and design things. And the science is pretty clear on that. Like if we don't do this, this is not good. We're not good going in a positive and a good future. On a micro level, it's also interesting because so much of these things in the climate space, they're still way too complex to understand, way too complex to use, really scientific. The branding is not good. The narrative is not good. So it's not exciting for people to join this mission, right? And design can have a huge leverage here, right? It's really taking something which in many cases is quite broken, and really leverage it from 10% to like 90% better solution. Versus if you design another food delivery app or I don't know, another e-commerce store, you're probably solving a problem which is 95% already solved, and
Mm,
you make the needle to 97% or like
mhm.
98%. So your leverage is much, much smaller, right? So I think it's both an incredibly meaningful space for designers to use their skills, but it's also a very exciting phase because you can really, really change a lot of things.
I love it. That's such an important, but it's like it's a survival topic. Like this isn't just a nice to have. This isn't just oh, it gives me a warm, cuddly, fuzzy feeling. This is an actual, real survival topic. So, I think the mission that you have and the way you guys are approaching it and how it's intrinsically linked to the core of everything you're doing is fantastic. And kudos to you for continuing to do everything you can to kind of keep that momentum and keep that mission going. Um, I'd love to know when you think about that journey and you think about all the places that you've worked, and there's some amazing things in there. The backpacking, I can just picture as well, like you and your wife packing everything into the car and driving to Berlin and like the whole thing. Um, when you think of all of those things, what one place would you, excuse me, what one place would you go back to yourself in that age, in that position, with everything that you know now? And what would you say to yourself?
That's a tough question. I think there are many, many places. So let me think about which one I would like to pick. I think one thing I would definitely like to revise is, or I think I would, and that's something I tell to a lot of like younger people as well, is I think I would love to do this traveling and getting myself off my comfort zone and my beliefs much, much earlier, right? So before committing to a degree in a certain direction, I would do that. And I would do it like a year uh, a year journey of traveling if people can do that, right? Not everyone can, but if people can do that and take minimal budgets and you can earn money on the way by doing something, just do that. And again, I think it just opens so many new perspectives and you start to ask yourself a lot of different questions. And that's something I would love to do much, much earlier, and maybe then have been shifting in a different direction, and starting something else much, much sooner. I think if people are into entrepreneurship and starting something on their own, and it's also something I try to do with my kids right now, like I really try to always emphasize this mindset in terms of if people don't know something, I ask a question back. It's like, what do you think? What if they ask me, like, what should I do? And I always ask back, what do you think? Like, I
Mm.
want to hear your perspective first. So this problem solving mindset and having an opinion on something is something people can cultivate and I could cultivate much, much earlier on. And also, trying to actually build things and putting them out there, right? So start a blog, start like with all of the AI tools today, people can start building immediately and not just building but putting it out there, right? That's the challenging part, but it's also the part where you learn the most, like how can you get other people to be excited about whatever you build. And I think that's something that, yeah, this mode of experimenting, building, learning, and having an opinion, it's something I would encourage myself to do much, much earlier on as well.
It feels like the key word there is experimentation
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
because, that idea, and I've heard, right from when I was a teenager still at school, I've heard so many people give the advice to me and to other people of go traveling, go see the world, don't go straight out of school into university or college, go and do something else first and then come back to this. And typically I feel when I think back to those that I've heard say that, they've done a very similar path to you. They've gone straight into it. They've done it. They've then gone into work and then they've taken a break and gone and done something else. And that has really sort of fundamentally altered their roadmap, having that break. And so I think there's something in that, when you hear lots of people saying the same thing, then there's usually something there. But hi, if what you're hearing is resonating with you, where you are in your leadership journey right now, stay tuned until the end. I'll share details on how you can work directly with me to level up your creative leadership. But I think experimentation is the key. Exactly. And that's one of the things that I say to juniors coming into the industry. Okay, great. So you coming in and you want to be an illustrator. Brilliant. Like that's where you're going right now. And that may well be your entire career. You may want to really drill down, find your niche, find your style and work solely in illustration. But don't rule out experiencing other things, other
Yeah,
disciplines. Just
yeah,
have a go. Even if it's a hobby, just have a go at watercolors or have a go at
yeah,
some animation of an
yeah,
illustration you've drawn and just
yeah,
see how you feel. Because at some point you'll do something more than likely and you'll feel this fire light up inside you like
yeah,
never before. And
yeah.
that then is often the path that is actually the right one for you.
That is so true, Adam, as you're framing it this way. And I also, as we speak about this, people really, you don't need to travel the world to do experimentation and to broaden your perspective. But it's something you have to proactively do yourself.
Mm.
So, I'm a huge proponent of the 4-day work week, and I think it's because we need this time and space to do something else and to connect with people outside of your own bubble. I encourage employers, companies all the time to try it out. Just try it out. Like do an experiment. Don't commit to it. Do an experiment. Do a prototype. Prototype a 4-day work week for 3 months, and then just label it as prototyping. And if you see it doesn't work well for you, just go back to the way things have been before. But especially right now, also as the world is changing so much and so fast, on so many different levels, like with AI, um, there's the climate crisis on the other side, the biodiversity crisis. So there's a lot of huge shifts which are happening. And I think to understand those shifts, we have to cultivate environments and also help individuals to get out of the comfort zones and the bubbles and do something else. So as an example, what would be if most of us would work a 4-day work week and have the fifth work day to go volunteer and to really like see people which are facing completely other life challenges. And then I think the way you would go back to your employer and you would see things entirely different, both as a person and as an employee, as a talent, and you would start to connect all these different dots in new ways, right?
Mm.
And you can, again, it's all about broadening the perspective, and I think we need to connect to this shift out there by being present. So both, as on a volunteering side, the other part might be to go and just have some of your time to build things with AI, right? And then again, if you start connecting the dots, you might end up building new AI applications or using AI to build applications for good, right? Or like for some of the problems you've seen through volunteering, which you have otherwise probably have not seen, right? And you're not experienced. And I think again, if we don't do that, then the world is much more narrow. And it ties completely back to what you're saying. Like, how can we create an environment of experimentation and getting out of your comfort zone to broaden your perspective? And by the end of the day, I think everyone would benefit from this, right? Because and I thought about this on this coffee talk with the design manager I met last week. I know so many creative people, especially right now, many designers who lost this fire of designing something. And many of them lost it because they are constrained completely, right? So the business tells them, look, we need to grow our audience every month. Those are hardcore KPIs. There's no room for experimentation. You need to deliver stuff. And it's not that it's not important. Like then we have to do it. And going back to the business constraint, like if you operate in a business environment, you have to reach certain goals. You have to move the business forward. Of course, that's the job. But I think if there's no room for being creative and trying out new things, then a lot of creative people getting frustrated, and then they lose this fire, they lose this passion, and then they're probably either, they might leave this job and try to look for something else. I think that's why a lot of people go freelance, because they want to be much more selective and picky about how they use their time. And they want to be creative. They want to create meaningful things. And I think if you lose that feeling, then everybody's loses. Like the employer company loses this too, because they hired you to come up with new creative products and new creative solutions, and now it's not that creative anymore, and it's not that new anymore, and it's kind of like doing the same thing again and again. So which doesn't set them apart, doesn't differentiate them from other companies. It doesn't move the business goals forward because everyone is doing the same. So could benefit from experimenting and creating this culture of trying things out and broadening your horizons much, much more.
I love that. And it makes me think of a piece of advice that I heard very early on that was you it doesn't really matter what the discipline is. In every creative discipline, there will be periods of slog. There'll be periods of production. There'll be periods of really boring, repetitive work. And you have to do that, not only because it may well be a business requirement, but it's also part of your training. It's how you practice your craft. It's how you hone your skill. But you balance that out with the experimentation, with the play. And so if you're in a particularly production heavy environment in work for an extended period of time, it's really important outside of work to find things you can do that fuel your creativity from writing to drawing, sketching, photography, whatever it might be. The way that always makes me think, or the example that always makes me think of, is the actor Steve Buscemi, who does movies like Con Air or Armageddon to get the money to then go and make the films that are actually really important to him, his independent movies. And he's got that balance of, okay, so I'm going to do this. These films make a lot of money. They make a lot of people happy. They enjoy them. There's nothing wrong with that. And then I'm going to take the resources I get from that to experiment and play and have fun over here. So I think you're absolutely right. That idea of finding the joy in work. And I also loved, you mentioned earlier about, getting out of your tribe and interacting with other cultures. And I think that's all part and parcel of it, of the play, of the experimentation, of the seeing different things. And the last thing that struck me was there's an element of pride. I think for every creative, there's pride in what we produce. Sometimes that pride gets in the way and creates an ego. But like when it's healthy, it's a great fuel for us to take pride in it. So I'd love to know, like, what's a piece of work or a project that you are most proud of?
Yeah, man, that's a cool part about being in this sustainability space because it so many projects I've been involved in the last years make me really proud, or I'm incredibly excited about them. I think in the last 5 years since we started big as an agency, I rarely have any meetings which I live and I'm thinking, what was it about? Why are we even building this? Who needs this thing? It's just a waste of time and potential. And I used to have a lot of those meetings before,
Mm.
right? And I was like, okay, I get this task, but I have, I don't understand why are we doing this? It's part of the job. We have to do it. Like that's part of the game. But and in a lot of the stuff in the sustainability space, as we work with founders and startups, I always have the feeling, yes, yes, that's exactly what we should be building. And that's exactly that. Hopefully, much more people should be building too, because it really like you get the purpose, you get the sense of why is it needed for the world. It's not just something exciting. It's not just about building it with great people. It's meaningful. It's purposeful. You understand why you're doing this. That's why I think pretty much every project we've been doing in the last year is absolutely exciting. From working with the founders of the Tomorrow Bank, who came up with this crazy idea back in 2018, saying we're just going to build a new bank from scratch, and probably every normal person in the world would be like, "This is stupid." Like, how do you want to compete against these big guys out there that have so much money, right? And they said, no, we are going to make it much, much better as a mobile first experience. We're going to be fully transparent about this so that people see what we do with their assets as a bank. And we're going to invest only in sustainable projects, in renewable energy and social projects out there to solve hunger, to solve water shortage, to invest in electric mobility, to invest in sustainable cities, etc. And all of our users, all of our customers can see that all the time. And of course, like again, if you design something like this, you're like, yes, yes, please. That's what we need. This is amazing. Like I wanted this for myself, and I want this for others because that's how it's supposed to be. That's also the question. Like I hear myself asking all the time. That's how it's supposed to be. You know, You're not supposed to give like your bank, the big banks so much money. You might be a vegan person, you might drive an electric car, but your bank, the Deutsche Bank, the Commerzbanks of this world, so much assets are invested in coal, in oil, in weapons, and whatever other weird industries you might not be even aware of, right? So that's, if you think about this way, it's just not the way it's supposed to be. And there's so many projects of ours which are in the same way. We built this alternative version to Google Maps, the Future Maps, which only shows you local places owned by small shops and local restaurants, which are mostly organic and vegan and vegetarian, shows you local markets. And it's like, wow, this is an amazing way, not just have an alternative to Google Maps, but also to rebuild local economies, right? So there's no room for Amazon at an app like this, which is super anonymous. You get stuff, but you don't know whom you're buying this from. You don't know who is it really serving. So this stuff, like you shaping your neighborhood with an app like this, with a simple maps app, you're shaping your neighborhoods. And you're like, of course, that's amazing. That's what the world needs. Like, I'm excited about this stuff, etc., etc., etc. Like in the B2B space, like so much of the so many startups who tackle, for example, climate emissions. So they build tools that help companies measure the environmental impact, and it's not just climate, measuring the impact on biodiversity, on water storage, on healthy soils. And a lot of this stuff is really complex, but it's really important. So translating that into usable products and when we prototype something and we put it in front of users, especially like in this heavy B2B environment, and you see that people love using this. They're like, this is so simple. And it's exactly the information I get to hear. It's speaking the language that gets me excited. Like if they go to a website and they're excited about the mission, they're like, oh yes, we can be part of that by joining this B2B startup. That's amazing. It's a very exciting and a very meaningful feeling, which I would love to have many, many more people to experience, rather than you build something. It might be exciting because it's a cool challenge. It's a gaming app, and I don't play. I don't have much time to play games, but I used to play, and it's fun. It's good entertainment. You can do it with great people. It can be a very well paid job. But the question is like, why do you like? What do you change? And I think that's just it's adding another level of thinking as part of your job.
That feels very aligned with my approach to who and what I work with. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but there's sort of three pillars of what's the mission we're trying to achieve together, what's the positive impact that mission is going to have on humans, and then the third bit, which is to me is one of the most crucial, is who am I going to be doing that with? Who are the people that are trying to achieve that mission with me? Because I think when you're working on such an important project with a potential for such a positive impact to humans, the ownership of that is not just about pride, it's about understanding the responsibility that comes with that task as well. And so I love how, as I've asked that question and as you're talking about it, your whole face is lit up. It's you can see when someone is really truly happy and truly proud with some work they've done. So that's great.
And I mean, it's also like in any other place, like our business and us as an agency and me as a designer, like obviously there's so many challenges too, and so many things which are very difficult, and it's difficult to move the climate space forward. There's much less money, so it's completely underfinanced as it should be, or as the money it should require for the change. It's complex, right? Like there's many just complex scientific stuff I have to understand to get my head around this, and it can be slow and bureaucratic, etc., etc. But you know why you go through this stuff, right? So you have this, yeah, you get the sense of purpose. Why are you trying to do that, right?
I want to flip it quite abruptly to,
Go ahead.
if you want to share, if you're happy to share, what's been your biggest mistake and what have you learned from it?
Again, probably so many mistakes through my career. I think the people aspect is something I'm very careful about today. So asking yourself really much more, like asking myself, who are the people I'm going to work with this? because I'll spend a lot of time together with them. And I think it was both hiring mistakes on my side, but also potentially myself joining teams or companies which probably didn't ask this question enough. And it's not just the company itself, but is it just a surrounding place where I can see myself growing and thriving? And I think if you find these places, then like a place where you can really grow as a personality, um, then staying in this place for a longer period of time, and not getting distracted by going to another place which might pay you more, which might look more exciting from the outside, but then you potentially don't grow as much as you would. I think that's something I've done in the past and something I would like to change. And again, something I'm much more mindful about today. What else? And I think, again, this question of cultivating this sense of experimentation and like really taking the time to get outside of my bubble. Like I also have times where I just focus on my own bubble and my own work. And then I also, if I only do this for a couple of months, I see that I'm getting frustrated, and I get a lot of energy by talking to people like yourself and really creating and connecting to places and to people outside of my personal bubble, right? Yeah, to learn and to grow and just to get energy from. So that's something I would encourage more people to do.
Mm. And that brings me to a lovely pivot back. I'd love to know what you're most proud of outside of work.
Trying to be a good dad. Trying to be a good dad. Like, and again, I'm really picking these words carefully, because being a good parent I think is very challenging, and it's very challenging for me. Like the amount of patience and empathy you have to really be there and to connect to your kids emotionally and being there for them, and go through life together is, I think, is much easier being just a parent than being a good parent. And but that's a separate conversation we should have another time, Adam. But also the word trying, again, that comes back to the experimentation. Like, obviously I don't know if I'm a good parent or not. I try as much as I can, but I will only see this in the future if my kids give me a call, if they come and want to talk to me, if they are curious to hear my opinion, or curious about my life, if they want to spend time with me, if they go and do something great on their own and become good human beings. But it's with kids, it's you get to see that, you get to see inputs regularly, right? And right now, as they become older, and I see why is this effort worth it, and I see them being empathetic and being there for others and being curious and doing stuff and having an opinion on things as well. So that's something I try to be proud of outside of work. And by the end of the day, obviously, this is my most important job, right? It's not the work itself. It's the life of my children.
100%. We've talked about the speed of change right now in the industry. We've talked about AI. We've talked about the climate and the biodiversity crisis that we're facing. Where do you see the creative industries going?
So they're mostly really positive things I would hope to see. One is, I think a lot of designers in our field are afraid of the AI taking their jobs, or they are frustrated by the design profession as well. And I think as the AI takes, can create a beautiful landing page and a homepage, and now wonderful advertisements and video production, photography, many designers are thinking, well, what is their job? And also because the world has seen so many repeating patterns, which AI is just automating right now. Like, most of the websites look the same. A lot of ads look the same stuff. It's just the same repeating patterns again and again. And many designers are frustrated by this. So that's one. And also the AI is doing this quite well. Actually, in the design world, at least on the website stuff, I haven't seen much really good stuff. Like, it really takes a lot of time to tweak that, but I think it's just a matter of time. So there's room for two things. One, there's much more room to really think about the problems you're solving. right? So having actually more room to have the 4-day work week and have one day to spend the volunteering, the homeless people, the spend some time in schools and kindergartens to take the inputs and understand different types of problems, and then work together with the AI tools to come up with new solutions much faster. I'm mostly excited about understanding, like seeing and understanding a problem, and you just need time to do so, and you need to be excited about this too, and then coming up with solutions. I'm completely fine saying to the AI, look, I need a dashboard. It needs to do XYZ. Design it for me, right? And this is the style I'm looking for. This is the branding personality. Um, those are the user needs. So I don't need to design the boxes anymore, right? And I don't need to design a table for a 1,000 amount of time. And again, the buttons in a new shape. Now they've another corner radius or not. I don't need necessarily to do this manually anymore. I'm happy that AI does all of this for me. So I have more time to think, what are we actually building? What are we designing? And also then having much more time to speak to people about this and show it, and then speak to users, having much more time for research, having much more time to get the empathy right. Some designers might not be excited about this part because a lot of the designers feel very comfortable and are pretty good at getting the job and executing on the job. So just applying visual craft, interaction design, and making something wonderful, right? I think this is the other domain. Creating something wonderful, it requires craft, it requires experience. Creating something special requires time and thinking outside of normal patterns, right? So I imagine both of those directions taking much more shape in the design industry. So having people who are really passionate about the craft and excel in this, and essentially just much better than the AI, and then being the benchmark for the AI to learn from and apply this to other domains. And also on the other side, having more time to think what we designed for and understand the world around this. Because today it's also we just don't have time for this too. If you're in a busy job, again, there are so many constraints, there's so many deliverables and goals and KPIs you have to move. And it's all about speed, delivery. So we ended up building a lot of stuff. We keep building without asking ourselves, what are we building it for and for whom? And what are we actually solving? We need time to do so. So I hope that the whole AI movement gives us time to do so. And it's obviously an exciting time where we can just produce things and put them out there like much faster. But it's also challenging, right? Because again, it's a huge shift in how we work in the design industry, how we see ourselves. What is our job? Is our job to create all sort of variants and components in a design system and to design all elements again and again? What is our job and how is it shaping? How is it changing? I think it's a very challenging, like as with all shifts, it's challenging to go through these periods of time and to navigate the new future. And of course, it probably will, reduce the amount of jobs out there because the machine can do it much cheaper, much faster. So that opens a lot of questions for us to think about. How do you feel about the whole AI movement?
I think designers or creatives have always been storytellers, and that part of that is being a thinker. And I think those two key aspects of our makeup are what we need to really drill down on now, because we will get to a point, whether that's in a year or 3.5 days, who knows what tech is around the corner, but we will get to a point where we won't need to do any work. We won't need to click anything. We won't need to make anything. We will just have an idea and we'll say it and it will appear. Obviously, there are accessibility complications, or not complications, but accessibility considerations to have around that interaction. But essentially, the core idea is we're just going to ask and it will be made. So we become much more reliant on our skills as a storyteller, as a thinker, and as a communicator to create whatever experience we need. And I think you're absolutely right. And I feel a good sense of hope in that idea that these tools give us more time to think. I do caution that just because something can be done quicker and faster, that's not a path we want to go down,
Yep.
because what will happen ultimately is burnout on a mass scale,
Yep.
because the expectation will just continue to get higher and higher and higher. And whilst the tech can keep up with that, the humans can't. And we're already stretched, like with our attentions being pulled to screens left, right, and center, to the sheer volume of information we are bombarded with every single day. So I think we need to be careful about that. But it obviously, coming back to what we were talking about right at the beginning, that kind of the business view of things, obviously it makes sense to see, okay, well, how can we implement AI? What can we do as a cost saving? But there's a second part of that is the human part. Yes, there's a cost saving, and that's great for the business. But what does that mean for the humans in the business? What's the positive or negative impact on the humans, and how can we mitigate a negative one? And how can we encourage or find or grow or foster a positive impact on the humans in the business? So I think it is an exciting time. It is exciting tech. It is clearly having right now both positive and negative impact across pretty much every industry, right? Like, it's not just the creative industries, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and the third route is that we all have, the AI just does our jobs, and we all get universal basic income, and we have much more time to enjoy these coffees in the sunshine and be humans, talk to each other, be there for each other, help each other, support each other, and let AI does all the efficiency which machines are good for and can do. Let it just design and build and engineer all sort of databases out there, whatever is needed. Because yeah, that's also a route which is likely about to happen as well. I just hope that with all of those shifts, we find more time to give priority to things that really, really matter. And I'm thinking, what is do we want to wake up in 20 to 30 years in a world that is fully automated? Like, everything is, cars are driving people around, autonomous driving, energy is solved. Everything is fully automated, all right? But we can't properly step outside the house because we don't have clean air to breathe. We have food insecurities and crises and water shortage all over the world. So we keep worrying about another crisis hitting us as society again and again and again and again. Like, what is the sake of fully automated world if we don't have this universal basic needs as a society, as humans, to thrive? And the chances are very likely that we are going this path, we are going this route. So I think the really interesting question for me is that all of those shifts is, what is it that really matter? And I think if you ask most people, the answer is very clear. Like, we want to feel safe, we want to have food, we want to have time, we want to spend time together as humans, we want to feel joy, we want to spend great time in nature. Like, you don't want to go to a beach which is full of trash. There's no fish because it's all gone. There are no animals. The trees are all tired and messed up. Do we want to live in a world like this, which is fully automated? I think everyone would say probably not.
Yeah. That brings us nicely, I think, to the very last question. And this is the one that every single guest gets asked. Are you still awaiting approval?
No, man, like, there's no time to do so. There's no time to wait. Like, again, I think you heard me speaking. I think the problems are quite clear out there. So it's just going and doing and applying the skills for good. I think it's a very personal question as well. Do we create barriers ourselves to give our permission to do certain things? This is a much more challenging question.
I love it. Stan, thank you so much for being part of this. I really appreciate you taking the time. If there's anything that you want to promote, or if you want people to get in touch with you, please feel free to share those now.
Yeah, I mean, find me on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Let's add each other, and let's see how we can collaborate to do some really good things.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Awaiting Approval. If you're a creative leader or stepping into a leadership position and want support that's honest, practical, and tailored to you. I'd love for you to come and join my Supercharged Creative Leaders program. It's a 4-week course built around 8 pre-recorded modules, 4 live sessions with me and the rest of your cohort, a private Slack space for you to ask questions and go deeper together, plus ongoing access to my alumni community once you complete the course. Each cohort is capped at just 6 people, so you'll always get personal attention, real feedback, and space to grow. And if you want to tailor the journey further, you can book extra one-to-one sessions with me, and we can dig deeper into the challenges you're facing right now. I built this program based on everything I wish I'd known when I started leading creative teams. No fluff, no jargon, just the tools, frameworks, conversation, and clarity that will actually move you forward. Spots go quickly, so if this sounds like the right fit for you, go to growwithadamjennings.com to book your place on the next cohort. Previous attendees have gone on to win major pitches, land new roles, get promoted, and step into leadership with more clarity, confidence, and purpose. You can find out more and book your place on the next cohort at growwithadamjennings.com. I can't wait to start working with you. Awaiting Approval is a Cordial Fox production, hosted by Adam Jennings, produced by Adam Jennings and Jasmine Egner.